Hi and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Today we have a 2013, it's a Hyundai Sonata. The problem we have, the customer complaint is that they're driving the vehicle and they get a lot of shaking in the steering wheel when they're applying the brake. And they also notice a noise coming from the front while they're driving. It's a pretty unmistakable noise. It's the brake pads grinding into the rotor. So let me bring you up there. I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to show you step by step what to do. Obviously, with this particular vehicle, we are going to be changing the brake pads, we are going to be changing the brake hardware kit, and we are definitely going to be changing the rotors because, as you'll see in a minute, they're grinding pretty badly. So let me bring you up there. I'm going to show you the one side that's grinding, which is the right side, and then I'm going to do the left side and show you how to do it step by step. So, all right, let me bring you up there. I'll show you what we're going to do and how we're going to wrap this job up. Okay, now obviously we're on the driver's side here, but it's going to be the same thing on the passenger side, but I'm going to show you that in a moment. What we're going to do first before we do anything is we're going to loosen up this screw here and this screw here, and we're going to take the caliper off. Now normally whenever you see me do a brake job, you'll see that I normally put a tool in here like this and I'll pry back on the caliper. This particular car, there is no room to get in there to pry on anything, so we're just going to take this caliper off. And we're going to use the reset tool in order to reset the piston. All right, so we're going to take out that screw right there. We're going to take out that screw. We're going to relocate the caliper off to the side. We're going to remove this mounting bracket here, which has some screws down in the back, right down over here. You'll see it a little closer when I have that caliper out of the way. It looks like a 17 millimeter down over here. We're going to take that out, and there's one more on the bottom. We are going to come over here, and we're going to remove the rotor. And we need to take out these screws here and here, and sometimes these screws can be tight, so I'm going to show you a trick to get those off without any kind of major issues. All right, let me bring you over the other side. I'll show you what it looks like, and then we're going to get started. As you can see, it's grinding, so it's wiped out. Another dead giveaway would be this. All of the rust on the rim. The rust is there because the brake pads and the rotor were grinding, and it actually ground down. And it ground down, and the rust from the rotor is actually on the drum. I mean on the rim. All right, so I'm going to give you an example of what you're going to need tool-wise. You're going to need a hammer, a 17 millimeter wrench. This is a thicker wrench. This is a much thinner one. This is my driver that I usually take the screws off with. This is just a brass drift and the metal drift. This is to reset the piston back into the bore. A normal screwdriver, a fairly long ratchet so you can get some good leverage out of it, and a set of sockets. You're probably going to need like a 14 and maybe a 17 millimeter. That's probably about it. And of course, you can't forget your synthetic brake grease. All right, so enough said. Let's get some tools and let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to try to loosen up these bolts right here. Now, sometimes you can get in here with a screwdriver and you can get them off. Other times you can't. They're pretty tight. So what you do is you come in here with a brass drift like this. This particular case we can't use the brass because the hole is so small there. We're just going to put this tool on here like this. We're going to hit it pretty firmly, a couple of shots. Now don't lose these bolts because you are going to need to put these back in again. Now I just want to point this out. That's pretty tight. It's hard to get it out. Now I could wrap it again with this to try to loosen this up a little bit. But I also have a tool like this. It's a driver to actually put it on the screw like this. And then what you do is when you strike this with the hammer, this pushes in and rotates at the same time to take that screw out. So I'll show you how it works. You hold it in there so it's nice and tight. You just hit it, and it comes right out. And believe me when I tell you, this tool, and you talk to any mechanic, and this tool is a really good tool. It works really well. You see how I hit it there and it popped right out? That's no BS. That really does work like that. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove that caliper. We have those two screws in the back. They're 14 millimeter. I am going to get in there with a swivel head ratchet, a little bit easier for me. Now, if you get in here with a ratchet, you try to take that off and it doesn't turn, if you put it on here and this entire piece in here spins, you would take your 17 millimeter wrench and you put it on here like this, and you can hold the slider so it actually doesn't turn while you take that bolt out. That's not the case here, but if it did happen, you have a wrench. You can just put it on there and you can hold it. All right, now we're going to just take this caliper and we're going to relocate this off to the side. We're not going to let it hang by itself by the cable, even though I know a lot of guys out there say, what's the big deal? You don't do it, all right? Take a piece of wire or hanger or whatever you have, and you lift this up and out of the way like this. And we're going to come back to push those pistons back in. But for now, we're just going to keep it like this. And then we're going to take out the bolts in the back of the mounting bracket right here. They're 17, let's make sure. Yep, they're 17 millimeter. And the way you can do it is just get your ratchet on it and just break them both loose before you take them out. Because otherwise, if you break the one loose and take it out, when you try to break the second one loose, the entire bracket is going to rotate out. Now, you know, normally I use my swivel head ratchet, but in this particular one I needed the leverage to break it loose. That's why you see I'm using the straight one. Now, you don't want to lose these bolts either, because you're going to need to use these over again also. Okay, for now we're just going to put this off to the side, and we will come back and change the hardware here in just a couple of minutes. Now this rotor here, if you were saving the rotor and you were going to have it machined, that's not the case here, but if you were, if you get behind right where you took the bolt out for the caliper, you put the pry bar behind it, and you pull it, and it comes right out. That's not the case here, because we are going to be changing these rotors. Okay, now we are going to clean this face up right here, because any kind of rust that you have on here, when you put the new rotor on, it's not going to sit perfectly flush, and you're going to wind up with a pulsating brake pedal again. So we're going to clean this up here. Now, there's different ways that you can do it. You can clean it off with a razor blade, clean all the rust off like that with a razor blade if you don't have the tool. You can use a scraper to get in here and scrape any of the rust off. Or you can use an air-powered disc like this to clean it all off. I am going to use the air-powered to clean this out a little bit, But we're gonna do that, and then we'll come back after I have it cleaned up. But before we do anything further, I just want to show you on the caliper here. You can see this piston is not pushed back in all the way. What we're going to do, normally I would take my new brake pads and do this, but they didn't get here yet. We're still waiting. You would put your brake pads in here like this and like this, and then you would take your tool like this, put it in here, and just turn it and push the piston. You see the piston pushing back in? Okay, so while we have this pushing back in, I'm going to set up an outline, and then we're going to come in here, we're going to clean this off in here. And once this is cleaned off and I got this piston pushed back in all the way, we'll come right back and we'll put this job back together then. All right, so all right, let's wait for our parts to get here. We're going to clean this up in the meantime, and then we'll come right back then. Okay, after you have everything all cleaned up, we're going to take our rotor, put our rotor on like this. And I just want to point this out to you. I am going to clean everything off here with brake fluid. So we're going to spray, I'm sorry, not brake fluid, brake cleaner. We're just going to spray it down like a little bit of spray on both back and front. And then we just wipe all of the oil that they have on it from when they actually ship it to you, so it doesn't rust. All right? And after you have it cleaned down, there's only one way the rotor can go on. You line it up with the screws right there, put it over the top, and then we're going to screw those two screws that we previously took out. Now these don't have to be crazy tight. You just snug them in as tight as you can with a normal screwdriver and you're good. You don't have to use that driver. Okay. Let me bring you over here. I'm going to show you what else we're going to do. We're going to change the brake hardware kit right here. Now the way you do that is you just push these little clips off like this and like this. You check it in here to make sure there's not a significant amount of rust on here. That this is no rust in there at all. And you put the clips back on like this, and you push them down right here, and that's that. Same thing on this one here, like this. Push it down. Make sure it's in all the way in here, and you're all set. All right. Next thing we're going to do is you're going to take these pins here out. And the reason you're going to pull these out is we're going to put some grease on them, and they have to go back into the same holes that they came out. All right? Just like this. You don't have to put a lot on there, you just have to put enough to lubricate everything, and you push it back into the hole that previously came out. And we're going to do the same exact thing on this one. Just like that. Put it back in here. And I want to point this out to you too. You see how this one is all the way up as far as it goes? You see this one here has got that space in there? You have to make sure that this pushes in all the way and that boot pops up into that little ridge right there. Otherwise you're going to get water inside there and you're going to prematurely wear it out. All right? Next thing we're going to do, brake lubricant, the brake silicone. Every place that the brake pad touches, you put the silicone on. Right? Just like that. Alright, now I just want to point this out to you too. This one is the inner brake pad because you see it has the mark of the piston right here. This is the disc indicator, which is what tells you when the brakes are worn down. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a set of brake pads like this, and you make sure you match it up to make sure that this sensor is in the correct location, because they actually have a mirror image, which is this one. See, it's in a different location. So make sure you use the correct one for the correct spot. This is the one that belongs on there. See? Okay, now we know it's an inner one. So now you can either put it on while it's here on the bench, or you can put it on when it's in the car. I'm going to put it on here because it's a little bit easier sometimes than trying to do it in there. Just like this. The outer one, let me just show you the outer. The outer doesn't have that indicator at all, like the other one did. Okay? This has the indicator, this one does not. Alright? And then this brake pad here, you just put it in the exact same way. That's why you want to put that lubricant on there so it slides nice and freely inside the bracket, which it does. Alright, let's get up in there and we're going to put this back on the car and we'll bolt this back up. Okay, you put your caliper mounting bracket back on like this. Squeeze the brake pads together so they don't fall out. And then we're going to catch both of these bolts by hand. Now I'm just going to step away for a second because I'm going to put some Never-Seez on here. Let me just reach over and grab it. A little bit of Never-Seez never hurts. It makes things go a lot easier. You don't have to go crazy with it, just a little bit. Sorry about that. While I was waiting for the parts to come in, I went around on the other side to do the other one. Alright, so we're going to screw the bolts that hold the caliper mounting bracket on. We're going to screw them on by hand all the way down as far as you can so you don't cross-thread anything. And once you've got them screwed in there, I'm just going to relocate this for a second out of my way. Now you can tighten them up tight. If you need the specs, send me an email. I'll look it up for you. Okay. So now, that's nice and tight. Next thing we're going to do now, we're going to put our caliper back on here. Now I just want to point something out to you. A lot of times people will take these and put them on with the hose all twisted up like that. You know what, let me bring you up so you can see what I'm doing here. You see how this hose gets all twisted up like this? You want to make sure that that hose is not twisted when you put it back on. Make sure it goes on nice and straight like this. Okay? Okay. Alright, now, everywhere that the brake pad touches, you're going to put the lubricant, which means very little here also. And here. And we'll slide our caliper over the top like this. And we're going to catch both of these bolts by hand and screw them in as far as you can by hand before you do anything. And once they're caught by hand, then you can tighten them up all the way. if you're tightening this, and this inner piece here, the slide pin rotates, remember what I said, get on there with a 17mm wrench and you can hold it so it doesn't spin. That's it. All right, take my gloves off and we'll recap everything we did. That's why I love the gloves. You take them off, your hands are nice and clean, no playing around. Okay, so what we did is we actually took the rotor, put the rotor back on. We put our screws back in the face of the rotor here, and we tightened them up. We put our mounting bracket back on. We made sure those 17mm bolts in the back on it here, as well as here, were nice and tight. We lubricated our slide pins right up here and here. We made sure that the 14mm bolts in the back are tight. We put our new brake hardware on, and we lubricated every place that the brake pad touches with the silicone, synthetic silicone for brakes. All right, that's it. We're all done. We're going to go to the other side now. We're going to wrap that side up too, and this job is finished and out the door. All right, as always, anybody has any questions or whatever, send me an email. I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody about anything. As always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Okay, now that we have the wheels back on the car and everything is all put back together and it's ready to go, we're going to do two things. We're going to first check the brake fluid level to make sure the brake fluid level is full. And the second thing we're going to do is we're going to get in the car, we're going to pump the brake pedal up 4, 5, 6 times till the pedal comes right back up to the top. Because when you initially get in the car, you step on the brake, it's going to go right to the floor. And if you're backing the car up or driving the car forward and that happens, you're going to crap in your pants. All right, so make sure you pump that pedal up before you take it out and drive it.